Come on, let's get nuts. Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. So today I have been wanting to review this guy for a very long time. This is the Beast Kingdom's 1989 Michael Keaton Batman. And this figure is an odd one. Don't get me wrong, I really like it, I think it's very cool, but this is going to be less of a review and more of a should you get it or shouldn't you get it, because there's so many unique things about this figure that it really just comes down to it being ultimately an acquired taste of a figure. I never got a figure from Beast Kingdom before, and I'll be honest with you, and I probably speak on behalf of many, I got this from the hype for the Flash trailer. I honestly can't even be bothered with the DC or Marvel cinematic universes much at all, but god damn it, I love Michael Keaton's Batman a lot, so I just figured, you know what, time has been a little good to me, so I'll go ahead and grab him and just do a quick little review and see what he's like. But again, there's 1,000,001 reviews already on YouTube, so I'm going to try brushing through the review portion a little bit quickly, just so we can talk about whether or not you should get this figure. Personally, I'm actually pretty happy with him, but there definitely are some things that are going to be absolute turnoffs for certain collectors out there. So let me get this guy out of the way and have a look at the box. The box is actually beautiful. I like this quite a lot. You have this really gorgeous silhouetted version of the cowl piece along with Keaton's face underneath. You have the classic 1989 Batman logo, the first one I've ever seen, even though there's like 50 different iterations of it. Then you have DA056. I'm not a Beast Kingdom guy, so let me know in the comments what that means, because I have no idea. Off to the side, we have two Batman logos. Again, really? I think you can relax. We get the idea. We saw the front. Off to the side, you get two more. Are we going to have a Batman logo counter? Maybe. On the top, there we go. We got the more cinematic version, the shiny, sparkly gold that we all love and grew up with. Off to the back, you have the figure actually shown off, looking really nice. Let's push in a little bit. There we are. Actually, I'll dolly around a little bit here. So you have an actual product shot with the cape, which I'm a little bit wishy-washy about, but we'll talk about it. He also has 3 alternate faces, and then you see the rest of his accessories here. Going on down, we have another really pretty holographic label to let you know this is not a knockoff or anything like that. They have DC, Warner Brothers. Hey, look at that. I guess we got another version of Aslan. Like a lot of figures that we've been looking at lately, interestingly enough, this is shoebox style, so you just lift up the top right there. On the underside, nothing. It's just some plain white, so nothing too interesting there. But they keep the excitement going. You got another little side portrait of that silhouetted Keaton helm, looking really good. Flip that away, and then that's the bubble he was contained in. I was very eager to open this guy, and I really wanted to get my hands on him before I went and talked about him, so I'll give you a few screenshots as to what he looked like in packaging. So basically, you just have the figure, then you have the accessories, but then when you remove this bubble on the underside, there's an additional one that contains his Batarang and some of the smaller ones. So I went ahead and reset everything on this figure to get him as close as he looked when he was first pulled out of the packaging as possible. And honestly, first impressions, this is a beautiful looking figure. I mean, if you want a Batman that just looks really good, then he looks absolutely fantastic. As for Michael Keaton, he probably is my favorite Batman. I'd say that Robert Pattinson is right on his toes. But yeah, I mean, this is the one I grew up with. This is the first time I ever saw a Batman move. So yeah, personal attachment for me. But anyways, again, we'll keep the review short and sweet. Up here, we have the head sculpt, and yep, that's Keaton's face. Absolutely. Dead on likeness. Looks really good. This figure definitely benefits from very uniquely being in the 8-inch scale. Yeah, you heard that right. This is a big boy, so when we get to size comparisons, we'll have a little bit of a discussion on that. But yeah, you can make out the eyes looking really good. He's kind of got that mascara going around, sort of silhouette them a little bit. Then, of course, towards the bottom of the cowl, you have the classic Batman logo from the 2 Burton movies. They might have varied slightly, but this is definitely the Batman from the first Batman movie. And then on the back, you have the continued winged pattern looking really nice. And fittingly enough, of course, this is all one single piece. I actually rewatched the movie recently, and it was pretty hilarious to see him, like, Keaton obviously not having the ability to move his neck, so he just you know, just pivoting around to look around everywhere. So this guy is very limited in the head department, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I love it so much, because ironically enough, its lack is its gain. That makes it more authentic. Going down to the torso, God damn it, even the torso armor is nostalgic for me. I just love how it's all one piece, not segmented at all. Beast Kingdom took no creative liberties when it came to giving him extra articulation, so that means a sculpt is not perverted by any ball joints, ab crunches, or anything whatsoever, and I appreciate that. That means that this figure moves just like Keaton would in the original Batsuit. So as you could tell, I'm not really reviewing this guy. I'm more kind of justifying things that we know about it thus far. Anyways, if we fold the cape out of the way, and then you'll notice this is one of my first gripes, is the head has a tendency to pop off, which is a little annoying. So you know what? I'm just going to remove that for now. But if we pull the cape away, the armor continues down to, well, the arms, and you have a nice plate pretty much on each limb of the arms and legs, looking really cool. So you have a big old shoulder pad kind of going over the tricep. It's been a while since I've taken high school health. My apologies. Then you also have the really awesome gauntlets with those 3 prongs coming off. I don't know what the exact terms would be for that. Then also the gloves, I mean, they're all the same. He has many, many hands, but they look very realistic. I love the ribbed pattern that they have. Looks like they could do a fair amount of damage if you rub them wrong. If we go ahead and take the cape off, we can also look to the back, which we pretty much never see in the movie, but you can see there are 2 segments here to sort of connect, like a back plate to the ab portion of the armor. And then if we look a little bit more closely, this is actually the very first figure I got that is not 1/6 scale, that has an actual true body glove, which makes me very excited about this figure. So it looks beautiful, but at the same time, it makes me worried that I'm going to give it some wear and tear as I'm fiddling around with him, so I'm going to be a little careful with him. But yeah, I mean, the details all across the board look immaculate. Another thing that I noticed, I mean, I'm sure just budging it over a little bit will fix it in time, is you have this really nice utility belt, which looks beautiful, but it tends to kind of gravitate towards the right on at least my figure, but you just turn it, it's a floating piece whenever you like, and it's not a big deal. This cod piece is actually part of the body glove. It's made of that rubbery material. It's not made of that hard plastic that we have everywhere else for the armor. Down on the legs, we have, I think, it doesn't go all the way around, but each leg has a piece that goes around like 3/4 of the thigh area, I suppose. It also has pretty basic, but also very authentic knee pads. And then as for the legs, I mean, they look really good. I really appreciate that they have a good joint in there. They could have just had it be like one solid piece, and you wouldn't be able to move around at all. So I like that quite a bit. Now let's quickly talk about the cape, which I got mixed feelings on. I like it overall. From a distance, it looks pretty good, but I find it a little flimsy in that, first of all, it's secured by an elastic band, which looks good in theory, but that means that the wires are separated. So it makes it a little bit weird when you're trying to fold everything up. See, it kind of droops down, so you gotta put in a little extra effort. I guess if you go ahead and try to pop this portrait back on, it makes it a little more secure, but yeah, see, it tends to kind of just droop back down. I'm not sure if that means we need stronger wire, or maybe this is something I'm considering. I might just make one consistent wire go all the way around. So I'm going to think about how I'd engineer that. Any tips on doing that, leave it in the comments for anyone else who has the same thing in mind. And the second gripe I have is with the material, which looks great. I think it's very well stitched, but I feel like I've had this material before, and it's kind of deteriorated over time in other figures I've had, so that makes me a little bit concerned, but that's kind of a time will tell. I mean, in this present moment, it looks good overall, although it feels a little bit poncho-y. I wish that it was perhaps a little bit thicker and had some more weight to it, and then maybe the wires would make it look a little bit more streamlined. Now, before we continue to the rest of the accessories and brush through them pretty quick, he also comes with this really nice figure stand. Pretty simple, not a whole lot to it, but it is pretty strong, not too flimsy. Simple clamp at the back, so I think we'll go ahead and prop Batman up on there, so that way we can get everything into his hands. Clip that right around. It holds him great, and then also, since he's pretty much like 98% black, you can't even see his stand behind him. Now, as fiddly as the two heads are, they are actually a lot of fun with how augmented they are. So, of course, here's the initial one we have where he's looking straight on. Then he has sort of the more, I guess, placid, neutral expression. But then you have this alternate head over here where he's looking a little bit more to the side. Again, Michael Keaton was not able to move his neck for shit in the movie. So now when he's trying to launch his grappling hook, throw a batarang, it can look up, look off a little bit to the right, so that looks really nice, as you can see right there. And you also notice that he's lacking the Keaton mouth in there, and that is because the mouths are also interchangeable. Here's what they look like when you take them out of the cowl. So it's pretty much just, this piece of face is actually a little bit morbid. Have the big old peg hole in the back, and the same goes for these alternate expressions over here. So on the left, we have one that's a little bit more pissy or angry. On the right, it's a very, very subtle smile, which I like a lot. There he is again with the more frowny expression, like he pooped his pants. And then we can also remove the head. Then we can put on the more glancing expression. And then we'll go ahead and pop in that little smile. See, I like how subtle that is. It doesn't look too apparent when it's outside, but when you put it in, you can tell Keaton's having a good time. Now, excluding the head sculpts and the face sculpts that we just looked at, he has accessories for days. It's literally batshit crazy. So he has a whole bunch of hands up here, as we can see. I'm not going to demonstrate every single piece here because, again, we're just going to rattle through these really quick and then have a little bit of a discussion. But over here, we have more open hands, and on the figure out of the box, we, of course, have the two fists, as we just saw. You have these ones that are better for, I suppose, the grappling hook, and then also this crazy guy over here that we'll talk about. Then we have these ones here, which are more for the cylindrical pieces that we'll have a look at. And then lastly, we have these more relaxed hands, similarly to these, but a little bit more clenched. So I guess you kind of have a few options there. And all of them pretty much have the exact same rib design, looking very cool. Next, we have what is, I don't know where he gets it. He kind of just pulls it out of his ass, but it's when he's saving Vicky Vale from the Joker in the museum. It's kind of that grappling hook he uses to kind of go across the museum ceiling, looking really cool. I love how that articulates. And it pretty much just clamps right around his wrist, looking very good. He also comes with these 3 mystery shurikens, and out of every single review I've seen on this figure, nobody knows what scene this shows up in. And I rewatched the movie, and I didn't see them anywhere, so I don't know, maybe that's in Returns. I gotta rewatch Returns, that's a damn fact. And then same thing goes for these dart pieces. Once more, I don't remember what scene these pop up in. Maybe it's like a deleted scene kind of thing. I mean, I don't know what you'd even do with these. Like, I guess you could get a cylinder holding hand and pop that in there, kind of. Yeah, you could, I don't know, you could write some notes on his little notepad, whatever. It also has a detonator here. I don't remember exactly when he used this, but it looks really cool. I mean, I like the sculpt quite a bit. It looks neat. He also has one accessory that I actually love, and that is his remote to call in the Batmobile. You can make out a very tiny Bat logo right there, along with a speaker at the top, a little bit of paint mess up right there, a little dash of silver, nothing at all in the back. It's kind of just a little brick. Then we have another very scene-specific accessory, which is kind of this battering ram for his wrist that kind of shoves out when he pushes a goon down into the floor of the clock tower, I suppose, in that one brief scene. Next up, and this is probably, these last ones are my favorites. We have the classic grappling hook. I kind of wish that they had a bendy wire, so that way you could have the hook coming out. You've kind of seen that in a few of my videos that I've actually custom made with the McFarlane ones. You could definitely do a wire, have the hook on the end. So that's a possibility. It would have been cool if they did that here too. And then lastly, we have this batarang, and you might be confused as to why there's a string. This is more specifically when we first met Keaton's Batman, and he kind of threw this around a goon's ankle, kind of lazily, and he lassoed him away. But if you wanted this to just be a standard throwing batarang, I mean, it's just a string. It looks like you just untie the knot that's right there. That shouldn't be too hard, a little bit tweezers. And off to the end, we have a little metal clip, so I guess you could put that on whatever hand or finger that you'd like. Now let's look at articulation, which is another very big point of discussion when it comes to this particular Beast Kingdoms figure. We still have that smile with the glance going on right there. The head swivels pretty much not at all. Even if you try to force it, it just pops right off. So clapping that back on. Yeah, you don't even hear a click or anything for confirmation. And as for tilt, it goes a little bit back, but then the Bat logo kind of pops up and it looks a little bit weird. So the head sculpt, you're going to want to keep it exactly where it is, at least for me. As for the arms, I feel like this entire body has a lot more articulation than it lets on, but between the body glove and the armor and the way that the torso piece is not articulated whatsoever, it's just hard to see any of that actually shine. But the arms, they don't really like to come out. So unfortunately, you're not going to get those arms going all the way out so you can do that whole bat pose, which is kind of a shame, but I feel like I'd be stressing the fabric quite a bit, so I wouldn't be doing that anyways. The arms do seem to be double jointed. Again, we can't see the joints because of the body glove, but it comes to about 90. I mean, without all the stuff under there, it would go further, I think. It looks like each wrist has that ball joint. It's kind of similar to what you've seen with the McFarlane ones, so they can hinge out or back in or up and down. All you have to do is turn around the joint based on what you like. Again, nothing in the chest, but you do have a swivel, so that is what makes me like this figure a little bit more. I appreciate the fact that they went ahead and did that. This cape is a real bother. You know what? Hell, there we are. Let's just pretend he met Bane, and this is their end result. As for the legs, they kick pretty good out, actually. Back in. Again, that's without stressing the fabric. It could go further, but I'm going to stretch it out as far as I can before I feel like things are starting to rip or tear or anything like that. And they kick forward about that much. Pretty much nothing back. You get a lot of armor around the butt right there, so it kind of gets a bit stuck. But the knees are pretty good. Actually, they're great. It might be the best point on this figure, so they look really good. Here's another point I wanted to mention. Every single piece of armor that we have on this figure is secured by glue, and whenever you articulate this guy, it becomes very visible. I kind of wish that maybe they used Velcro or something instead, so it could shuffle around a little bit more, but again, it's not a bother for me. I'm not going to be articulating this guy too far, so I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. Ooh, those joints scare me, especially when I can't see them. And as for the ankles, they go down, up, swivel, and no rocker at all. Oh, that's a shame. As I'm setting up for size comparisons, it is worth mentioning that one thing that you can do is remove the head sculpt and then kind of taper the wires and the cape back, so that way you have a little bit more exposure to the arms and the chest and just have better access to everything. And when you put the cowl back on, it still looks pretty good. So if we pop that on there, yeah, and also just the cape being under there is what causes this to pop off a little bit more, but yeah, I wish they did a better job with that peg in there. Now here we are at size comparisons, and I think this is what will really make or break this figure for you. So let's just run through everybody that we have here. So over here we have two NECA figures, being the Batman vs. Aliens Con exclusive Batman, which is highly modified, and this is pretty much a standard height that a 7-inch scale version of a human being should be, and obviously he towers over him at 7-inch. That's like 8-inch. And over here you have a NECA Predator, which are naturally supposed to be taller than a human being, and he is taller than Batman. And Batman did indeed fight the aliens and predators in the comics, so I totally headcanon that, and no one's taken that away from me. It's too damn cool. And then over here we have some offerings from McFarlane, which is your typical go-to line for DC. So we have the Robert Pattinson Batman from The Batman. They also have the Arkham City Joker, and yeah, they're definitely dwarfed by this Keaton Batman over here. Then we have the Marvel Legends 6-inch scale Webman, and forget about it. He's like a dwarf. Look at that. Too tiny. And because he's supposed to be in every review, we have Muck Muck from the Black Series. What are you? I'm 8-inch scale. So, the big question, should you get this figure? It really depends. It has a lot going for it that's amazing, and it has a lot of things that are very irritating, and for some absolute deal breakers because they're just unforgivable for a lot, I suspect. It has a lot of accessories. It is absolutely Michael Keaton's Batman, bar none. This is one of the best depictions we've had. And also the screen accuracy is absolutely there. I mean, I know we're looking more towards the top, but then, yeah, like all the armor and everything looks fantastic. I mean, once you give him all the adjustments, you fiddle with the head a little bit, the hands, the accessories, like the big old grappling hook that we have there, he looks great. I really like the visuals of this guy. But then again, there are a lot of cons. The armor, as beautiful as it looks, you have a lot of glue residue whenever you try to pose him. Like, for example, if I peel back the cape a little bit, in fact, we'll remove the head for this so you can see. You can see right there's some very distinct white glue residue, which for me, I actually don't care about that much because I feel like if it pops off, then being a customer, I'm like, okay, that's a chance for me to either add more glue or find an alternative like Velcro and see how it works. Like, for me, I'm okay with experimenting. But if you're a collector who likes to open a figure, have no issues with them, you absolutely do not have any interest in customizing, steer past this guy, because I can see him having a lot of problems later down the road. And also, I wouldn't call this an action figure. This is more of a glorified statue, which looks amazing and has a few points of articulation and some accessories to boot. He is a display piece. Like, I wouldn't display him alongside my DC McFarlane figures. He'd be more like in the foreground, in the front, kind of being the main centerpiece, I suppose, but I'd never touch him ever again. I'd pose him I like, leave him that way for 6 months, then come back to him, change him up a little bit, so on and so forth. But he's definitely not the kind of figure you want to play around with, because he's very fragile, and there's just a lot of things that look great on here that I don't want to mess up. I don't want to see a shoulder pad falling off. I don't want to see that head continuing to rocket up in the air every time we move the cape, so yeah, it's very finicky. But all that being said, at least for me, I like it a lot. In fact, I am also equally interested in perhaps getting the Jack Nicholson Joker, which is also being offered by Beast Kingdom. I mean, really, anything that's classic Batman quadrilogy I'll have. I mean, for me, I've never been a Dark Knight guy. I'm sorry about that. But I do love Robert Pattinson's Batman, and then I love the Burton Batmans, and I even love a Schumacher Batmans, which is allowed. Relax. For me, this is more a nostalgia piece more than anything. McFarlane recently solicited the Batman from the Flash movie, and I passed on that because, first of all, it's not screen accurate to the 89 one, and second, I don't know, it just didn't hit the nostalgia buttons that it did for me. And also, I forgot to mention how this is very matte. It's not glossy, it's not shiny. All the tones are done very well in this figure. All that being said, there's a lot of things to think about if you want to get this figure. It ain't cheap, that's a damn fact. But it's okay to get if you know what you're getting into. It's not meant for articulating in really crazy poses. And for me, I'm okay with that, because in the movie, he did not do a whole lot of moving around. It's more, again, him just doing the with the head, and then doing a little bit of leg work, and I think a kick here and there, and a lot of punching. You can do all the punching you want, that's definitely not a problem. But if you want him to be more dynamic than he was in the film, might be best to wait for an offering from McFarlane. And personally for me, if McFarlane ever picks up the Burton or Schumacher movies to do as a line, considering that they did the Dark Knight movies already, then yeah, I'll get those too. I mean, then that's a whole new experience, right? And then they'll better match up with the other McFarlane figures we already have. But again, the fact that this guy is on a totally different scale all on his own, especially if you're unfamiliar with Beast Kingdom like myself, and the fact that he's got some QC weirdness, it's a big decision. If you are on the fence, I would suggest waiting, just because there are a lot of questions here, which I've answered for myself, but every collector is different. They all collect different types of figures. They know the pros, they know the cons. Some are willing to modify their figures, some like them to be absolutely perfect. If a single joint is a little sticky, they return it, and that's okay. I mean, we should always be getting figures which are always up to par to our standards and as advertised. For this guy, not quite. The armor pads tend to rub against the body glove, and then the glue shows up. So there's just a lot of weirdness with this figure. But for me, I can get past it. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's just going to take a little bit of work and a little bit of care. But yeah, that's pretty much my take on this guy. Very cool to look at. Excellent display piece. Good centerpiece for the overall DC collection, but definitely not for screwing around with too much. So if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more content like this, or just other videos that are not like it at all, that are also pretty cool, then please, as per usual, be sure to like, comment,
and subscribe.
Or you'll never get a chance to try the company chocolates, and so much heart was put into them. Thanks a lot, rock on, and I will see you all later. I actually kind of wish they would have included him with that big old grimace that he had when I think he attached a bomb to a goon and he kicked him into a gutter and he blew up. I think this is one of the few rare occasions where a Batman flat out murdered some people on screen. So, I mean, how can you say no to that? It's fun to see Batman kill people. This shit, I don't know.